And so to kick it off, Henry and all the other candidates, the first question is, according to the city's own assessment, Peterborough will need 484 new units of rent geared to income supportive housing by 2029. In order to meet the needs of everyone in the community, what's your plan to achieve this? And of course, the first answer goes to Henry.
Thank you. What I'm offering is an action plan, and that's what it's called, Action Now, not in 2029. We need beds, and we need them now for these people. I spoke with Reverend Samantha, and we don't see eye to eye on the distribution, the harm reduction as far as giving out the needles. We do see eye to eye about getting these people into beds now. They need the dignity, right? We have to show them dignity, and they won't have it out in the streets. Homelessness is not just the tents either. It's also these families, these young families that are sitting with a flexible mortgage right now. They've gone from $1,200 to $1,800. They've got to decide on whether they're going to feed their family or pay their hydro bill. We've got to come together as a community and work together on every level, not just calling it a state of emergency for these people. They need the most help for sure, but all of us need to come together and help each other.
In 2021, the overflow shelter moved to its current location on Wolfe Street and extended its hours to 24/7. When the provincial funding for this service expansion expired, City Council stepped in and committed municipal money to keep the shelter open until March 31st of the next year. But beyond that, the future of the shelter is uncertain. City Council will likely debate whether to continue funding the shelter during its budget deliberations this coming January. About 28 people were staying in the overflow shelter per night at the beginning of this year. As mayor, would you support the continuation of municipal funding for 24-hour services at the overflow shelter beyond March 31st? Why or why not? And if not, what alternatives do you propose to keep people warm and safe in the potential absence of a shelter?
From my understanding, it's a staffing issue over there. I don't know if any of you have been over there, but there's the tents are quite entrenched. We need more than 28 beds. So we need those beds, but we need quite a bit more. It's an interesting property. I think there's a lot of potential that we could even partner with Trent, get some kind of modular factory to get these projects going. But that particular property, there's definitely some potential. They need much more than 28 beds. There's enough tents over there, I would say about probably 30 or 40. Whenever anything's missing in people's property, they go over there to look for it. So we need to do something with that property, with that area. Go ahead.
Marcus? Thanks, Marcus. Thanks, Jeff, for that. Jeff was the last answer to the last question. Thanks, Marcus, and thanks to my colleague Naomi. The third question is as follows. In 2019, City Council responded to the Victoria Park Tent City encampment by enacting a new bylaw prohibiting camping in public parks. Since then, the bylaw has forced people who are living in parks to repeatedly pack up their belongings and vacate premises under threat of police action. Often, the people being kicked out of the park say they had nowhere else to go. However, the city's bylaw does include a provision that allows municipal leaders to designate particular parks as premises or as permissible campsites when they judge the shelter capacity to be insufficient. As mayor, would you support the continued eviction of people experiencing homelessness from city parks? Alternatively, would you support the use of the bylaw to allow camping in select parks? Why? Why not?
I agree with Jeff. Tents are not a solution. We need the beds for the people now, and sleeping in the park is not a solution. Having restrictions as far as which parks, for sure. I think we should even look back, why are they ending up on the street? We're not a very big city. We should be able to house these people. We've got lots of buildings that could be retrofitted, that we could use for people. They don't need to be out, especially in the middle of the winter. I'm sure that these guys have an advantage as far as knowing the different properties. that are out there? I don't. Once I become mayor, I will be finding out which properties we can use, which ones we can retrofit, and get them in and get them off the parks. The parks are for the families and for everyone to enjoy. They're not meant for camping. Where are these people coming from? That's what we have to figure out.
Question 4, there's 2 more to go. In Peterborough, we know that many individuals experiencing homelessness are unable to access shelter or choose not to access shelter. Some don't access shelter because they own a pet. Others don't access shelter because they want to stay with their significant other. Still more do not access shelters because of their drug use. And lastly, many people are simply not allowed to step foot inside our shelters. Over the first year of the COVID-19 pandemic, the number of service restrictions banning people from municipally funded shelters increased by more than 400%. How will you ensure Peterborough provides low-barrier shelter service and that everyone who experiences homelessness in Peterborough has immediate access to a shelter bed the very first night they seek it?
As far as providing low-barrier shelter, again, we need beds, right? The shelter system itself is broken. The staffing issue over at the Wolf shelter needs to be corrected. And the housing, we need to get the beds. But, I mean, you're next. I can't say any more than that.
And this is the last question for this round, and then we're going to turn it over to you and to the audience online. And the 5th question for our candidates is as follows. The mayor helps to set the tone for City Council, and City Council helps to set the tone for the rest of our community. For example, in recent years, City Council members have contributed to a spreading narrative that people experiencing homelessness in Peterborough are not really from this city, and so should not receive our help. You're running to be a leader in this community. What kind of tone would you try to set for our community's discussions around homelessness? And what public narrative shifts would you push for?
Thank you, Jim. Yes, the only way my plan will work is if we all work together. To get these beds, to get these people out of tents and get them into a safe, warm bed, we all have to come together as a community. And right here, this is ground zero with United Way and with One City. United Way is working with 16 local organizations to create hope and possibility for 60,000 people living in our community. They're the perfect start for me and my plan and Peterborough's plan. One City, they're bringing in people to reintegrate them into society. We want them to be accountable and responsible and make sure those people don't end up on the street. Whether they're using or not, they should still make sure they have a warm, safe place to stay. Thank you.
It appears in our community that we are seeing an increase in mental health, addictions, crime, litter, and more. Studies tell us that when inequality increases in a community, this tends to be the result. We tend to see rises in these other phenomena. This increase in inequality is affecting everyone, including all residents in the neighborhoods more or most affected by the effects of these rising or growing inequalities. How will you work to create a community where everyone can feel supported, cared for, and safe?
Thank you. I disagree as far as getting them off of the substance. You've got to give them hope. You've got to give them a purpose. They have to have a good job, a reason to live. And I would go straight at the harm reduction, get that under control, and stop giving out needles to them. That's not helping them. Keep it to the site, right? Keep it to the right. If these people cared so much about you, they would be thinking about the purple heroin that you're shooting in your arm rather than the rusty needle. Go ahead. Your turn, sir.
I just wanted to know if any of you folks are landlords and how many units you own.
No, I am not.
As head of council, how will you address stigma and misinformation about drug use and homelessness spread by many fellow council members.
It's the facts. We want to see the facts and we want them out on the table, just like this harm reduction. When you're telling people that the healthcare industry is saving millions of dollars by handing out clean needles because the addicts are not contagious, they're not attracting AIDS or Hep C, it's completely false as far as the amount of money that the healthcare is saving. What about that one child that steps on the needle that's in the park? Come on, guys. You can't use your statistics and tell me that that's possible, that's real. Giving out needles is not saving the healthcare industry lots of money. I think it's a misrepresentation that needs to be dealt with on a council level, on a community as a whole. We got to take back this city. We can't be letting them do drugs in every alleyway all over the city. Keep it into one spot. Your city.
I think the time is up.
People that are like sitting on the streets and they'd rather go to jail because it's like they get fed, but they just sit there. You can work in jail, but they just give you a banana. So you make no fucking money. So when you get out, when you get out of jail, you have no money, can't get a house, can't do nothing. So you get these jails, you can put a rehab in the jails. You got no programs, you got AA. They got jobs in jails. You build jumpers or blankets. That's the jobs.
So,
Okay, your jails are falling apart. People will commit crimes to go to jail because they feel safer, because the overflow is like a outside jail. But there's jobs in jails, and you make just a banana or food, sometimes nothing. So you guys could put a rehab in the jail. Saves a lot of money. I don't know. I think that would be a good solution. Like, not everybody's a criminal or murderer, you know? So some people are just desperate, you know? They don't want to kill themselves, so they just break a window or push no.
So I'm going to try to restate, and you tell me what I'm getting wrong. So people sometimes end up actually doing small crimes to get a spot in jail because it's the safest, best place to sleep some nights. And your proposal is that instead we should
There's no supports in jails.
not support the jails. So we
No,
want
there's no supports in the jails.
and
No
then
programs, no nothing.
Thank you. So then what happens are people go into jails and then they come back out with empty pockets and
Yeah. They got jobs in jails. You can work in jails. They need, like, so you make funding. No, I'm saying that you could pay them money so then they get out, they can,
Right.
and you could put a rehab in the jail because
Right.
they're sitting there all fucking day. Excuse me.
Okay. So the proposal is that instead of having people come out of jail poor, struggling, addicted to substances that have not been, people haven't received supports they're looking for in jail, we want to actually create opportunities for people to safely come out of jails with jobs and other kinds of services that they may choose to use at that time.
Yeah, because when you go to jail, you become a worse criminal, and like it's not. I don't know. I just think that there's your rehabs and jails. I don't.
So supports in jail. Yes. So thank you. So supports in jail. What do you think about this idea? Better transitions from jail. There are a lot of people, I can attest that the research we did this summer, many people are coming sort of in a cycle between jail and the streets in our community. What will you do to address that cycle?
Yes, thank you for your question. We need the support there for the people when they do reintegrate into society, whether they're coming out of rehab or jail. We need a purpose. I mean, it's so easy to fall back into old habits if they don't have that reason to keep them going. So yes, 100%. As far as supporting the treatment within jails, 100%. We need. It would be difficult without it.
The City of Peterborough is not currently providing funding for a winter strategy to address homelessness this year. As there are currently over 328 unhoused community members and only 105 shelter beds, this is a dire and life-threatening situation. If you are running for re-election, why didn't you do anything to address this previously? And what are your plans for the unhoused community this winter?
You know what happened to Mama Angel? Do we know what happened to Mama Angel? There's nobody in the bus shelter anymore. She's back in the bus shelter? It was empty today. It was all cleaned up. From the rumor, she has an apartment, or they have found her. Is she? Okay, because it was cleaned out this morning when I went by and I was asking. Thank you.
We've never asked, what's your name?
I'm Melissa.
Hi, welcome, and thanks for being here. Thanks for being here. Why don't you ask your question? I'll let people know the order.
Mr. Lumsden, I'd just like you to know that if you ever suffer from substance abuse, we will offer you the compassion that you deny us. On to my question. As a city that has 3 reserves bordering it and has a large Indigenous urban population, I'd like to know what you as a mayor would specifically do to address Indigenous people in the homelessness crisis.
Thank you. Melissa, were you saying that my compassion is in question because of my stance on the harm reduction? I couldn't hear you. No, well, no, you were at the mic and you mentioned something. Was it my compassion that you were putting in question?
I think what Melissa was saying, Melissa, if you don't mind my translating what I heard, you can take that question after this. You're to answer the question that Melissa asked around Indigenous people, I think is what the point Melissa was making right now.
I still don't understand what that
So
was.
the question is on the back screen.
Okay, but it had nothing to do with she had mentioned, sorry, what something to do
I
with.
think that's a conversation. I think you addressed that, and it's not being answered, and you can take that conversation after this.
As far as the Indigenous, I would like to see a much greater presence of them as in our community. We've got the 200th anniversary coming up of Peter Robinson Settlement. Awesome opportunity to have a citywide powwow, get all the reserves in the city, get these signs, get everyone together and showing some love.
How will the candidates ensure that the voices of unhoused folks in our community are heard, respected, validated, and most importantly, I editorialized there, and most importantly, included in all processes with respects to them?
I'm one of the only candidates that's been walking out there. I just heard Victor say that, but I've been talking to the homeless and I'm out there on the street. It's a practice that I'm not going to give up when I'm mayor. I want to find out why they're on the street, how they got there, and that's where we're going to find out where these people are coming from.
What do you think about rent control? Do you have any jurisdiction of control over rent control policies in this city? That's pretty much it. What would you do? What are your thoughts on rent control?
So thank you so much.
Rent controls have been around for a long time, and we've seen the different effects as far as what it does to the market. On a local level in the city, we have to deal with housing affordability and create the houses for the people. It's not the rent controls that'll do it.